Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's ICCB Touch Base, focusing on the end of the year closeout. My name is Brittany Boston, and I will be one of the facilitators today, along with Don Hughes and Sarah Goldhammer. So just some quick housekeeping items before we turn it over to ICCB staff. As a participant on the webinar today, you are in listen-only mode. However, we would like to hear your comments and questions. So please feel free to put those either in your chat or questions box, depending on the device that you're joining us with today. It may be named something different, but chat or questions will be what you're looking for. This will also be recorded, and so we will post that for a short time for you to be able to view or share with any colleagues that you think might be interested in the information as well. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Kathy to get started for today.
Thank you, Brittany. And I want to thank Brittany and Dawn and Sarah from the PDN for helping pull these together all year. I think that there's been a huge asset to being able to do once a month, kind of focusing on your questions, and they've done a lot of work in planning, facilitating, and structuring these. So I want to give them a huge shout out. I think this is something we will continue throughout next year to do once a month where you can actually ask questions. And I do want your feedback on that, if this is meaningful to you or kind of a time suck and you don't think these are meaningful, and that's an okay answer. But I do want to give everyone a good shout out for the work they put together all year on these. This will be the last one we have this year. And today we're going to focus on the end of the year reports. And there's a new report coming out that's called the Data Quality Checklist. There is a second new report coming out for a career training and one-stop infrastructure costs. We have some time for some specific DAISY questions and end of the year reporting out as it relates to DAISY. I don't want to get down in the weeds with DAISY about various program specific questions, but you can ask those and we can get back to you on that. But we do have some high level just updates for you very quick where we are with things. So next slide. Okay, before we start, I cannot stress this enough. Budget modifications are due on May 31st. There's absolutely no wiggle room on this due date. We will not be allowed to carry over any expenditures for FY21. So you must have your modifications to us by May 31st, end of the business day. I am going to ask you to prioritize spending your state funding. And over the next week, you will be in contact with your regional support as we look at federal funds. And many programs wait until the end of the year to draw down money. That's fine, but I am trying to get an idea of what you will be drawing down and what will be remaining as a carryover for the agency to move into FY22. So there is no program level carryover, and I just need to understand your federal and ILCE requests. So you will be in contact with from regional support to talk about that over the next several days. Before I move on, very high level questions or concerns about your budget modifications or the focusing on state dollars primarily. Do you have any questions or concerns about this? Is there anything coming in the chat as a question or concern?
We did have one come through. Do we just send the budget or do we need something else?
For a budget modification in the provider manual, there is a one-pager that allows us to see from like a narrative type perspective of what you're moving and where you're moving it through, and then the new budget. Those are what you will send in for your budget modifications.
And then Kathy, we have one clarification. They just want to make sure that they will not be able to carry over FY22 state dollars as was the case last fiscal year.
Yes, there is no carryover for any funding, so all your funding must be spent out this year.
And then also another clarification, since May 31st is a holiday, Memorial Day, do budget modifications need to be submitted by Friday, July 28th?
Friday, June 28th?
No, I mean May 28th.
Oh, May 20, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, we will accept budget modifications up to the end of the day, May 31st. I know
Okay.
most of us hopefully are not working that day, that you get a long weekend and get some time to relax, but it would be advised to send them early so that you can have your weekend and not be thinking about work. We will accept them up till May 31st. Because when you submit them to us, we have a time and a date stamp on them. So we can accept them on May 31st, but you can submit them early.
Okay, thank you. And then someone says that they're new. So could you please give an example of what a budget modification might include?
Okay, so if you're moving money from one line item to another line item that is more than 10%, then you need to modify your budget. So what I would suggest, if you're new, that you reach out to your regional support and schedule a meeting early this week. Today, tomorrow, we can go over a budget modification with you and help you make sure that things are appropriate, because there are, we've waived generation, but the administrative costs still remain, and there's GATA 10%. There's a lot of nuances to this. So we will work with you on your program level budget.
Okay, thank you very much. And you are getting some feedback that to please keep doing these sessions, Kathy, but I think we've come to the end of our questions at this point.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next slide. Okay, so there's been a bit of confusion that I wanted to do at a high level. So there's been a small level of confusion about who is an eligible student that can be reported in DAISY. So I want to clarify that any eligible student receiving adult education services with an eligible adult education teacher, regardless of the funding source, go into DAISY. So any student that's in a class that is 1.7 to 1.9, any of those courses, those can be recorded in DAISY. Those students count for you, for your overall head count. They would go into sections 4900 or 4910, depending on the funding stream. Let's pretend you have Title I services paying for a specific adult education course. That Title I money can go into DAISY in either 4900 or 4910, as can any other funding source, as long as it is an eligible adult education student with an eligible adult education instructor. So I want you, if you have questions about that, reach out to us. And what we will do on this is we will help you. What I am seeing is that some of these students are underreported, and that is in part a small part of our enrollment decline statewide. So these students do qualify as eligible adult education students. They can be put into DAISY. They should be put into DAISY, and we will work with you on that. So as you work with it, I do want to have a very high level. Any questions on what I just said? Any clarification necessary? How can we help you with this statement?
One question for you, Kathy. I only count once they get in how many hours, 7.5 or 12?
The 7.5 hours, will count them for our state count that we report out to our governor every year, and we report to our legislators. So when they hit that 7.5, that's where I get the number in my report to the governor and legislators when I put the chart together of how many students we served. That is where that number comes from, 7.5 hours. To be federally reported, 12 hours.
Okay, thank you. And could you also clarify what makes an eligible adult education teacher?
An eligible adult education teacher is a teacher who is paid and has a bachelor's degree.
All right. And could you give another example of students that might have missed entering? Like, where would they have maybe missed out on entering eligible students?
So what I have discovered is there's been some misunderstandings and miscommunications from us. So let's just say, and I'm going to use this as an example, you have institutional dollars that you use to support a class, or you have Title I dollars that is used to support a class as part of your IET or a lot of support courses. As long as those courses have the SIP code of 1.7 through 1.9, those are the adult ed SIP courses. If they have that course, they are an adult eligible student, and that teacher is a paid teacher. That counts. And what has unfortunately been misconveyed is that those students can't be counted in categories 4900 or 4910. And I want to clarify, yes, they can. So if you have students and courses that are funded through some of that braided funding, sometimes they're not put into those courses, into those sections, and they're not counted. And that's where I think we're losing some of that head count.
All right, and a very specific question. This person says they have workplace skills enhancement students whose teacher is being paid through SOS literacy grant. Can they put these students into DAISY even though that teacher is not being paid via ICCB grant 51% and up?
That's the miscommunication. Yes, those students can be put into DAISY. They will be put into those categories other restricted. And I think that's 4910, other restricted. So that's where those students go, and that's where that would go. As long as that teacher has a bachelor's degree, yes, those students count. They go in other restricted. And so all rules apply for adult ed learners, pre-post testing, post testing, all of those types of things apply, but that class is an adult education class. So yes, they count.
All right, thank you, Kathy. And then getting back to that teacher with the bachelor's degree, someone wants to know if their teacher was grandfathered in and they took the methods class, do they still need to have a bachelor's too?
If you're following the ICCB policy and that teacher was grandfathered in, that is an eligible teacher, okay?
All right, thank you. And then are you thinking about having a webinar on braided funding? It's because there's some people that are thinking there's a promise of that this might be helpful.
Yes, I can do a webinar on braided funding. My question to the field would be, does that help you at the end of this year, or do you want us to do it at the beginning of next year with setting up programs? Just a very high level answer in your chat feature, this year, next year. And then you guys can scan the most common answer.
Okay. And I think also some of those questions may be very specific. So just kind of repeating what you've said earlier, Kathy, that reaching out to support. So yes. Far, it's most people are saying next year, but of course, one person says it'll be better this year. So we're getting a little bit of each.
Okay, so let me do this. For the programs that need the help this year, let's schedule a meeting with your regional support, and I can hop in if you need me, and we'll work through what that looks like for you. And then we will start the next fiscal year with, we were just talking about doing an onboarding retreat day in each part of the state. That's just a brainstorm. We haven't firmed anything up, but doing something to help you guys set up your year and addressing all of these concerns at the front end of the year, not the end of the year. So we've been talking about doing some of that. We'll kind of keep you informed and included in the planning of that. But if you have questions for the end of this year, let's just reach out to regional support and loop me in as needed, and I will hop into any calls you need. But I do think, I really do want to stress the eligible students, because we've been looking at our data, and at a first glance, without doing a really deep dive, it looks like we are potentially counting a lot of students, and that could be a partial reason for our deep decline in student numbers. So I want to make sure that you know who you can count. That 51% generation goes into any consideration for a class that you are generating against your grant. So in a normal year, when we have generation, that 51% must be ICCB funded. That is for classes that generate against your grant. For classes that are not paid for out of your adult ed money, that you're using other money for, that's where you put them in the 4900 and 4910 categories, and you're still counting those students, and you still get the measurable skill gains from those students. That's the important part. You still get the MSGs, wherever they're coming from. An adult education student is an adult education student, no matter who funds them. We just need to make sure they're in DAISY, okay? So I have a feeling I'm gonna get a lot of emails on this one, so please share with us so that we can, as you're wrapping up your year, you're getting full credit for all the students that you can count.
All right, thank you, Kathy. So you are getting a couple that they like the onboarding day idea. But one person did ask that you send out dates because the calendar's filling up fast. So I think the idea seems to be positive, but just wanting to make sure that they can be a part of it.
And we're looking at a hybrid model of those onboarding days, because we understand people may not be allowed to travel or attend meetings. So we're working through kind of the planning part of it. But okay, I'm glad to know that that's being well received. Okay.
Yes. One more question, Kathy, and then I think we're ready to move on. Somebody wanted clarification on when the grandfather clause began.
Yikes, I don't have that. It's in the provider manual. What I can do is look for that one in the provider manual and kind of let you guys know what that date is. But there is, if a person has been consecutively teaching, they can't have been teaching for a few years, not teaching for a couple of years, and then come back. That doesn't qualify. If they've been nonstop teaching, then there is a grandfather clause, and I do need to look that. It is in the provider manual, but I don't recall the date.
All right. Somebody's saying they think they started when the preferred teacher started, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then
it does sound about right. When the rule went into place that teachers had to have a bachelor's degree, we did consider the grandfathering in people who had been currently teaching. So it happened right about then, but I don't know the year.
And then also a little clarification are the exceptions for the bachelor's for IET instructors.
Clarify that question, please.
Well, I'll have the person clarify, but I'm thinking that if they're paid for out of CTE, then they're not, but I think they must be thinking if they're having a CTE instructor possibly that's also teaching for adults. I'm not sure. We'll let them clarify.
So
I don't want to speak
to clarify, if the teacher is teaching an adult education class, they must have the basic requirements for the adult education program. To get to the specifics of what you're asking, you need to send us an example so I can kind of clarify my answer. If it's a CTE teacher that is teaching a training portion, the industry recognized credentialing portion of the IET, we know many, like I'm going to make an example here, in an automotive program, the teacher who's teaching the automotive component is a CTE teacher for the institution, may or may not have a bachelor's degree. They are a qualified CTE instructor. That's going to be fine. HVAC, things like that. Those are okay because they're the CTE, but they can't teach the adult ed support class. That needs to be the adult ed teacher. Okay, so please clarify with an email with us so I can answer that with the details you need. I don't want to be broadly speaking and then people are panicking like, wait, she just said. So email us for clarification and we will give you the details that you need.
All right, and then clearly we've got a lot of good questions here. So regarding counting classes not funded by ICCB, Adult Educational Literacy and DAISY, does the class need to be held within the APC boundaries?
Yes. All of your programming that is adult ed should be within your APC boundary.
Okay, and also we received a CURES grant within FY 2021. Do we need to submit a budget modification to reflect this funding?
No, that's a completely different grant, completely different. No modification needs to be, because that grant has been closed out as far as final modifications and final expenditures. So no.
All right. Yes, so thank you. Several people are saying thank you, Kathy. They appreciate you taking the time to give them these answers. I think we're ready to move on.
Okay. And, if you have questions after this, email your regional support. We will work together to help you. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I want to thank you. So now it's time to turn this over to Cece for a minute to show you the data quality checklist, what that's going to look like. And then I will need to show my screen for just a minute at the end to show you what the career technical report could look like. So Cece, if you want to talk about the data quality checklist, and while they're getting their screen set up, to give you some information about why this is being added to the end of year reports, because we all love adding more work to everybody. This has been something that OCTAE has required us to do for a long time. We have just not actually completed that task. We complete a data quality checklist that we turn into the feds every year. This is exactly what we turn in at a local level for you guys. It supports that what we say is happening across the state. So this is why we're doing this. In the future, so this year is what I'm calling a hold harmless year, and I know I'm using hold harmless incorrect. Oh, this is what we're saying this year. You will complete this data quality checklist and we will work with you based on your responses. Cece's going to show that to you. Next year, at the end of fiscal year 22, you will have a data quality checklist to complete. If your answers do not meet the exemplary status that we are required to turn in, you will be on a corrective action plan for data management. But we are not doing that this year. This year, you are going to see the report. You will turn that in at the end of the year with your end of year reports. You will have a chance to understand what we're looking for, and then you will have a year to get everything up the way we need it to be. And at the end of fiscal year 22, we will do this again as our end of year reports. And if the data quality practices do not meet the standards, then we will do a corrective action plan as mandated by OCTAE. What we do have, though, is a full year of you guys to see what this looks like and to understand what we're looking for. So you can take a big pause, sigh of relief. There will be no corrective action plans this year. So Cece, I'm going to go ahead and let you share that and go.
All right. Can everyone see the Management Information System user data quality checklist? Just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. So this is just a quick preview of what it's going to look like. So there's 3 different sections, and each section has 2, it's divided into two quality standards, I guess you could say, as Kathy was mentioning before. So under the first heading, which tells you which content area it is, this content area is data protocols and standard operating procedures, you'll see a banner that says acceptable quality. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see superior quality as well in each of the sections. Now, what Kathy was saying was that each of the standards within this acceptable quality section need to be met in order for you to stay off of a corrective action plan in the future. Of course, this year, since we're giving it to you so late in the year and since it's a new report, you won't be held to that standard just quite yet. You'll also notice that each of the standards or each of the list items in the acceptable quality standard section have a citation underneath that tells you where in the provider manual this standard is coming from. So all of the list items, all of the criteria in the acceptable quality section are coming straight out of the fiscal year 21 provider manual. So none of these should be new. None of these should take you by surprise. We would never hold you to some criteria that you are finding out about in June. That just wouldn't be fair. So just a quick overview of each of the sections. The first section is called Data Protocols and Standard Operating Procedures. This section essentially just assesses whether you have a plan and standard operating procedures in place in order to ensure that you're following ICCB and NRS guidelines. And then the next section is data collection and verification. This is essentially just assessing whether you're following that plan. So whether you are in practice following NRS and ICCB guidelines when you are collecting and verifying or checking your data for errors. You'll also notice that this section asks you to include a copy of your student intake form. And the reason for that is just to make sure that your intake form has all of the required information on it, because the ICCB does ask you to require or to collect certain fields or certain pieces of information for every student. But that shouldn't be a shocker to anyone. And then the last section is data analysis and reporting. This is essentially just assessing whether you're following all of the reporting standards on that the ICCB mandates. You'll notice that there is only 2 list items for this section. So it's essentially just asking about administrative records, making sure you're keeping all of the administrative and student records for the mandated guideline, and making sure that you're submitting all of your reports by the deadline. Now, after you're finished going through all of these items, you're going to certify that you fill this out in a way that is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, and you're going to put a digital signature. And then if you didn't meet any of the acceptable quality standards, then you'll fill out a data quality improvement plan. So you'll list each of the content areas, and they're listed right here, that you didn't meet the acceptable quality standards in, and just list the specific standard that you didn't meet. And then the rest of the questions just kind of guide you through a process to make a plan so that you meet the standards next year. All right. Now, I also wanted to show you the instructions that will come out along with the data quality checklist. Now, you'll notice the table of contents is set up pretty simple. So this is kind of designed for you to be able to just go through and say, I really didn't understand how to answer list item number 3 in the data protocols and standard operating procedure section. So you'll go to the instructions, you'll find item number 3 under data protocols and standard operating procedures. And this is actually designed to be clickable. So you can just click on item 3 and it'll take you right to a description of how to answer this question. Now, you'll notice that most of these items are pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that I will say is, as this is a data quality checklist, I really want to make sure that you're using data in order to fill these out. So for example, when it asks in the data collection and verification section, are you, let's see, are you pre-testing all students? In order to make sure that this is correct, you might go into DAISY, print out an error report, and see if you have any missing pretest errors. So that would be one example of actually using programmatic data in order to ensure that you're abiding by all of these standards. I know it's the end of the year, we have a lot on our plate, so it might be really tempting to just kind of skim through this and be like, yeah, I do all these things. But in future years, you should know that you will be, in addition to you going through this, you may be selected for a review. So like I'll be randomly selecting a few providers to kind of go through and make sure that, okay, you said that you pre-tested all of your students on time. Let me go through on my end and make sure you don't have any missing pre-test errors. So I do recommend actually filling this out in a data-driven way and being as honest and thorough as possible. So that is about all I had on my end. Now I'd love to hear any questions, any specific questions that we might have about this.
So Cece, everybody wants to know how they can get their hands on this. Are you going
this is going to be sent out to everyone along with the other end of year reports. And it is due, I know I said earlier during the administrators retreat that it was due on June 30th. That was a mistake on my part. It's due July 30th, along with all of the other end of year reports.
And when you say it's going to be sent out, I mean, is that something, can you let people know when you're going to send it out?
That is, go ahead.
I want to interject here real quick because I told Cece at the meeting we had just before this, I told Cece that we would send it out with all of our end of year reports. What I just heard you say, Sarah, is that a lot of people want to get their hands on it now. Is that an accurate statement? Because I told Cece something not more than a half hour ago.
Yeah, so actually, so that's why I pressed you on that, Cece, is because people are wanting to know if they could have it today. So that's.
Okay, I have no problem, Cece. I just wanted to clarify because I told her literally a half hour ago we would send it out with everything, so you weren't in that you didn't have a flock of emails and confused dates and all of that. So I just said in an internal staff meeting we would send them out all at once. What I'm hearing from you is that's a bad idea, that you want it now. Is that pretty much accurate? Rather than waiting, you'd rather have it now.
There's multiple people asking if they can have it today. So I think that's an accurate statement.
Okay. So Cece, I'm sorry I cut you off. I did not mean to, but I was just correcting what I had said earlier because if this is ready to go and people want it today, I think we can put it out today.
So a couple of more questions.
Which I just literally contradicted.
But we appreciate that fluidity that, you know, the field's saying we want it today. So, you know, we appreciate you being responsive to that. So also, Cece, someone wants to know if you could clarify what is acceptable virtual signature is and if these forms should be completed in PDF, Word doc, or like give a little bit of clarification along those lines.
Sure. So the PDF does have an electronic signature field. So when you click on it, it'll bring up your own digital ID signature kind of business. So that is the way that you will sign this document. And I do recommend filling this out with Adobe Acrobat Reader. It is designed to be a fillable PDF. All of the checkboxes, all you have to do is click them and it'll fill out that way. All the text boxes are also editable. If you need more space, there will be instructions, or there will be guidance in the memo and the instructions that go out that tells you what to do if you need more space.
All right, and somebody just wanted to clarify the end of the year reports are due July 30th. I think
that is correct.
I think they like your answer on that. And then another clarification. Okay, so yeah, so end of the year reports are July 30th. I'm seeing several different dates in here, but Cece just told that they're July 30th. And if programs requirements this year, will a letter be sent to their institution's leadership? And I understand there will be no corrective action plan this year. So I think they just want a little bit of clarification there.
Got it. So I will be reviewing all of the data quality checklists this year just to kind of see what we get, see if there are any questions that maybe need to be altered for next year, because of course, like all these questions make sense to me, but then if I get a response that isn't exactly what I was looking for, that I'll know that I need to make some adjustments. So after I review all of them, I will fill out a rubric and maybe some comments that might help you kind of meet those acceptable quality standards or improve your data management practices for next year. And I will send that back to the same email address that you used to submit this report. So this report will be submitted to the Adult Education Compliance email, and whatever email you use, that's going to be the email that I send the results back to.
All right, thank you. And we're getting some thanks, both Kathy and Cece, for being so responsive and sending this out today. But they're asking if possibly, in addition to being sent out today, if it could be sent out with the end of the year reports as well, so that it's kind of in the packet. Is that possible?
I don't have the next report I'm going to talk about totally ready yet. So that's one of my concern was sending everything out in pieces. So I'm not ready to send everything.
So I think they're just wanting this one to be sent out twice, like today, but then whenever you are ready to send out, just a repeat of this one. I believe that that's the way I'm interpreting what they request.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to do it twice. And then one additional question about those remote signatures. Somebody wants to know what's acceptable remote signature for students on the intake form.
Right now, we are yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was gonna say, I hear that question a lot. I was gonna let you handle that one.
Oh, since we are experiencing a pandemic, we are being a little more flexible with that one. So any electronic signature on a fillable PDF, like I just showed, or any box that says, I certify that I'm the person that I claim to be on this form, or any statement to that nature, that is acceptable.
All right, thank you. I think we have come to the end of our questions for now, so I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna go and send you, put a link in the chat feature. Will it go to everybody? Let me see.
Yeah, Kathy, if you pick.
Guys, I don't think I can send it to everybody. Oh, I can't send my link out to everybody, so I'm gonna put that in the chat. I'm gonna ask Dawn, can you put that to the entire audience, or did that go to the entire participant list?
I did, yes.
Oh, you're wonderful, thank you. All right, and then I need to share my screen, and the reason I shared that link is this is tied to another report that we have from Octave. And again, this was something we should have reported on this fiscal year, and we did not. So Octave kind of called me very nicely and said, where's this data? And I said, what data? That was the extent of the call. They wanted us to get it together, and we did not. We actively chose to tell Octave I did not have the data that we needed, and we would get it this year. Here's what I am talking about. As I'm scrolling through this PDF very quickly, I'm looking for a very specific chart. We need a report from you. This will come out as well we'll need a document much like developed for the data quality checklist, provides you with the details on how to answer the questions. she's giving me a pretty high bar to kind of lean into. Last year, career service. This would tie to what money you spend in these areas. So we will ask you how much of your budget, federal budget, went to outreach, intake, and orientation, not staffing, but these services. How much of your money went into assessment? How much of your money went into coordination of activities? Now, for all of you who probably have your head on your desk right now, as I did when I first saw this, this does not match any of your budget line items. I know this. We know this. This is a complicated request from Octave. This goes into our student performance reports, not our fiscal report to the feds. So when I first approached this to several staff, to several adult ed administrators and said, how do we do this? How do you get us this information? What we determined was a program level report where you would, to your best ability, identify how much of your money went into these areas. This is a pullout of several other line items, so this will probably not match your end of year expenditure report, nor does it need to. Okay. This is going to be a program level report where you will be able to tell us to the best of your ability what money was spent, federal dollars, on these key areas. As you can see from the link, this document is almost 80 pages long. So one of the things that I am currently working on, it is not yet done, and I apologize for that, but we will get that out as soon as we can to help you pull this out and understand what those numbers are coming from, what qualifies as outreach, intake, and orientation for this report, what qualifies for initial assessment for this report, and we will ask you to give us a budget line for how much you spent on that. It will not match your budgets. It will not match, anything that you turn in on your end of year, because it is a pullout of multiple line items. Understanding that, we will not hold you to balancing it. Then this is why it was not turned into a fiscal report, because I think it's better to be a programmatic report. So I'm going to pause, and after you guys all take a deep breath, know that it's going to be okay. Let's talk what your concerns are.
So Kathy, we don't have anything about this specifically, but just reaching back to the end of the year reports. There's been a couple people that have mentioned that in the past they thought that was an August due date, so they're just questioning just a clarification about that July 30th versus August.
The August due date, and I will triple check our dates, but understand we've had some shifts in staff and things are very fluid, trying to keep up with all of the shifts. The August 1st deadline that many people tend to think about are the last date to request federal drawdown money. And then, so let me look at our dates, because that usually was handled by Jane. Jane is now in another division, so let me clarify all of those dates for everybody before I start getting everybody confused. Let me put that out in an email once I go through my provider manual and triple check my dates, because we have the budget modifications at the end of this month. We have the drawdown request at the end, 1st of August. There are, we have a date when we freeze DAISY, so you can no longer adjust any of your data in there. So we have like all these fluid, well, all these dates. So I think what's best is if I put an email out to the field by tomorrow with a clarification on exactly what is due when, and then we all are on the same page. So please be patient with me as I work through the end of the year dates.
All right, Kathy, thank you for checking on that. So now talking about what this last information that you have up on the screen, someone wants to know, can we gather this with a Google form and collect it?
Can you gather it with a Google form and collect it? I don't understand that question. Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, can you give us a little more clarification? We'll go on to the next one. So answering these items should not include staff salaries, is that correct?
It depends on which line item that we're
Kathy, we're losing you, so.
going to look at. And that's
Yeah, you're
where
gonna-
the
Can you
70-page
repeat that,
document
Kathy?
is what I
We
have to
lost you
weed
for a
through to
second.
give you the details that you need. Because
Okay, sorry, we lost you, so can you give that answer again? You kind of you cut out.
All right, I'm going to stop my screen.
That's a good idea. And maybe we can get.
I'm sorry. My bandwidth is not working really well today, as many of you know, every other meeting I've had all year. But we are getting back to the office soon, so I should not have this problem much longer. I'm going to have to pull all the specifics out of this document. You guys have the link to the Octave memorandum. Let me continue to work on that and provide details for each line item. You guys have this now. It's in the link. I will work on the much more user-friendly data dictionary, so to speak, where you have terms and how to fill out the report. I just wanted you to be aware that this is coming. And this is coming because it's supposed to be something we've been doing for years. And unfortunately, I have not done it. So we need to get that taken care of this year.
All right, thank you, Kathy. So there's one other question. I don't know if you want to answer this or if you want to put it in the information that you're clarifying, but should we include funds other than AEFL funds for the Career Services and Training Report?
No, this one is strictly an Octave report because they want to see what their federal dollars are paying for. There is no good or bad answer on this because if you're using all state dollars to do this, that's fine. If you're using other dollars to do this, you just have to tell me it's other dollars. What they care about is specifically how much federal money comes out for these areas. They do want to know, and that's really, that's where we are with this. It was a relative surprise to us this year when we got a call from Octave telling us we needed to do it. So it was kind of surprising. And as you can tell, none of our budgets line up with this. So we have to figure out a way to get this from you in a way that is possible and not the administrative workload. I can't imagine how to make this more complicated. We're trying to find ways to make this as easy for you as possible. I know that doesn't answer the question, but I want you to know where we are with this because we're trying to work through all the pieces.
All right, thank you, Kathy. I think we're at the end of the questions again.
Okay. Okay, so I encourage you to check out that program memorandum. I encourage you to look for your emails today and tomorrow. I encourage you to work with regional support on budget modifications. And again, we will be asking you through this process about your federal dollars, if you're planning on drawing all of them down or if you're not going to use all of them. Simply it helps us plan appropriately for next year. I will tell you to please prioritize spending as all of your state money without having generation attached to it. There's a lot we can do. Purchasing technology for students, more tech computers for lending libraries. I mean, let's do some meaningful things with the funding that will continue to support you through next year. I think we've come to the end of our conversation. I will stay with you guys for any lingering questions, but if you have your questions answered, sign off, and then I will apologize to Cece for cutting her off because, like I said, literally a half hour ago, I said, we'll send all the forms out at once to minimize confusion. And then I'm turning around today saying, well, you want them, we're gonna send them out now. So I apologize for that flip, Cece.
No worries at all.
All right. Like I said, Kathy, there's a lot of people that are very thankful that you guys are making this change and sending it out today. So there's a lot of kudos for that. And there's a question about whether recording will be available. Brittany, can we put that on the Excellence in Adult Ed website? Is that you could provide and we can put that on there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get that. Sarah, you and I can touch base and I'll get all of that information for you.
Perfect. Okay. And then Kathy, one other question, when submitting curriculum modifications, do we submit through ICCIS or directly to another email?
The curriculum modifications still go to ICCS. I think they call it ICCS. I think that's what they call it internally. But yes, the curriculum modifications still go to that same place.
All right. Thank you. All right, so there's somebody that's asking a little bit more about the grandfathered clause. I'm going to encourage that person to reach out to separately from this platform, if you don't mind.
Right, because that is in the provider locator or provider manual, and we'll be reading that to give you the exact answer. So, yeah. There is a question. There were some DAISY questions. We do have a few minutes. And Cece has graciously been willing to answer a few DAISY questions. So if you want to toss some questions in there, we can give you a written response to those questions. Or if you have something we can answer now for the last few minutes of the conversation, she has graciously said she'll be here to touch base on any DAISY questions.
And Kathy, while we're waiting for that, just a clarification, a different topic. Are there any planned test waivers for FY22? Will we be held to the test within 3 days policy?
Yes. So I say that yes as a broad answer because I don't know where we're going to be with the pandemic. I don't expect us to be out of the pandemic by August. I know programs are going back to services. I know we still may have some students who are very hesitant to come back to classes. We may have staff who are still hesitant to come back. So we're still in a very complicated year. But we also have had a year for programs to develop processes and procedures to manage remote testing. Since it won't be all of your students, it would be the expectation that you can get them tested. So we will be working with you on that. So I don't have my crystal ball, but what I do anticipate is back to a more normal year next year as far as ICCB and OCTAE policies.
All right, so here's a DAISY question. Is there a way to find out students' persistence in class in DAISY, both individual students and for the whole class? There used to be this feature in DAISY 1.0.
I'm not sure if this is what this person is looking for, because this doesn't have the specific language of persistence in it, but we do have an attendance report now. And it is modeled after the one that was available in DAISY version 1. And all you have to do, let me just try to find a student here. So go to the students page and then scroll down to their class section, and you can do this for current classes or classes that they've already exited, and then just press the attendance report button. And you'll get an attendance report that shows their attendance in the class and their rate each week. So not sure if that answers the question, but that's something that we have available.
Okay.
Do you want to share your screen and walk through that really quickly?
Yes, I actually just realized I wasn't sharing my screen.
That's
so
okay,
that probably
that's
wasn't that probably wasn't as helpful as I thought it was. Hold on just a second. Let's
You have to do the changing of the guard every once in a while.
Yep. Alrighty. So that attendance report, it's not on the reports page, which is a little counterintuitive because it is a report. But all you have to do is just select the student you want the report for, go to their classes tab, and you won't see a lot of data for this because this is the demo system. So these are all fake students. And just click on the green attendance report button, and you'll get an attendance report. It does show the percentage of attendance for each week, or each month rather. And you can use that to kind of gauge how much the student is attending. And it does only show the attendance for the eligible hours. So it doesn't take into account like holidays or emergency days or anything like that into the denominator. It's just showing you presences over presences plus absences.
And Cece, can this be done on a class level rather than an individual student?
This was designed to be at a student level because sometimes parole officers or public assistance officials will want to see these kinds of things. But if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out and see if we can try to get that functionality in the next fiscal year.
And so a couple people have said that it looks like an empty grid for them and they don't see the recording for the dates.
If that's the case, I recommend reaching out to the help desk as long as there is attendance entered for that student. If there isn't attendance entered for that student, then that's the reason that the attendance grids would be blank.
All right, thank you. We have come to the end of the questions at this point, unless anybody has anything additional to ask. Okay, there's one additional question. What do we need to do exactly to get an ad hoc reports to pull into on the same students as our required reports? So I'm getting data from the same student set from each.
I'm not sure exactly what that person is asking. So is this person asking how to create an ad hoc report that essentially duplicates the required reports? I'm not sure.
So once again, since we're coming close to our time, maybe that would be a good question to ask directly, since it sounds like you have a very specific question. And then also about the grandfather clause, I'm going to encourage that just because we can't stay on a long time after the session ends. That's why, just to give an explanation to that person. And then Cece, will the questions previously submitted be answered in some format?
Yes, I actually did, just for my own notes, kind of type up a brief answer to each of the questions that were submitted. And so I can pass those along to the folks that helped with hosting this, and we can try to get those out to the field.
Yeah, we can send those out to all of the people who attended today.
Great.
Right, Brittany? I'm speaking for you.
No, absolutely. So you should everyone on the call should be getting a follow-up email either tomorrow or the next day. I can't remember what the timeline is, but we can send in the link for the recording, and then CC, if you have that Q&A. Kathy, if you want me to send you the additional questions that were put in here, and we can send that resource as well. We are flexible.
Yes, please send me the transcript so I can answer, Cece and I can answer the questions and kind of get you the information. And I appreciate the field's patience as we try to pull together information on today, the last report that I was supposed to have ready for today, but didn't quite get that together. I'll be very honest. Cece's ahead of the game. She was fully ready with the data quality checklist. I was not quite fully ready with the career training money. But we will get those out to you as quickly as possible. I had thought you would prefer that information all at once at the end of the year. Understanding now that you want it ahead of time to be able to plan, we will get that out to you as soon as possible.
All right, well, thank you very much. I think lots of people saying thank you, Kathy and Cece, for answering questions and providing this information today.
All right, guys. Hopefully we'll see you all at the forum. I'm excited that that's going to be a hybrid conference this year, and we get to see each other soon. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
everyone. Enjoy your week.
Take care, everyone.